Thank you, Mithudi, for the beautiful songs and the mantras. This is a series on Sri Aurobindo's book, Synthesis of Yoga. And today's chapter that we explore is called The Realization of Satchit Ananda. It is chapter 12 in the section on Yoga of Integral Knowledge. So we've been exploring in the past few talks the section on Yoga of Integral Knowledge, and the knowledge that we seek in Yoga of Integral Knowledge is not just understanding of the divine from an analytical standpoint, to try to understand and look at various viewpoints of the divine. It is not just an understanding, it is an experience of the divine. And it is not just meant for an experience of the divine, but also needs to have some practical value in our day-to-day life. A knowledge which will enlighten us to express that divine more and more in our day-to-day life. And it needs to have that experience, it needs to have that practical value. At the same time, it also needs to be a complete knowledge, because we all understand that half knowledge can be more dangerous. So coming from that perspective, it needs to be a complete knowledge also at the same time. And that is what the realization of Satchit Ananda, this chapter, brings about. It brings a complete knowledge, it brings an experience, and it brings a certain practical value to it in our life. And let's first start by looking at the practical value in the realization of Satchit Ananda. If we look at our daily life at the surface, then we generally identify ourselves with a separate existence. You and me sitting here are seen as, from a paradigm, as separate bodies. We are separated by air, we are separated by time and space. And from that perspective, there is a constant seeking out for joy in the outside. There is a constant struggle or a conflict. There is fleeting moments of harmony, and then again a struggle in our life. There is love, there is some degree of perceived harmony, but then again there is conflict. There is a sense of, I can do this, but I cannot do that. So there is a sense of incapacity, limitations. There is a certain joy, but there is also a certain sorrow. There is pain, there is pleasure. So, from this separatist point of view of looking at life, this is how we experience it. But surely this cannot be the true basis of our existence. If we are seeking to live a spiritual life, surely there has to be a different basis, a certain different practical way of viewing life, where there is a certain unification, where we all are one at a certain level. A certain basis where we get in touch with the infinite power of the divine, and we rise above the incapacities and limitations of life. There has to be a certain basis which puts us in touch with the innermost joy. And that innermost joy which goes beyond the pains and sorrows and pleasures of the heart and the senses. So there has to be a unifying truth, an infinite power, and a bliss, a Sat, a Chit, and Ananda as the basis of our life. And if we hold this paradigm offers a lot of practical value in building up a spiritual life, a spiritual way of living. Now, this way of expressing Satchit Ananda as the unifying truth, the infinite power or the self-awareness and the conscious force of this self-awareness and the bliss expresses the essence of Satchit Ananda. But this essential knowledge may not be a complete knowledge of Satchit Ananda. Because a complete knowledge would not just help us see the divine in its unified one form, but will also enlighten us to see the divine in the multiplicity, in the here and now, the presence of divine as existence, as the Sat in all of us, as the essence. The complete knowledge will not just help us experience the infinite power of the divine consciousness at the summit or at the peaks of the transcendent experience, but also empower us to descend into the here and now and embrace the limitations, embrace the weaknesses, embrace the incapacities of life and transform them. And the Ananda or the experience of bliss doesn't just have to be an experience again in the transcendent, but again coming down in this world of multiplicity to be able to experience that Ananda in the essence of the whole creation, in the essence of every individual animate or inanimate object in this universe. So that would be a complete experience and knowledge of Satchidananda. But how would such a experience or knowledge come to us? Because unity and multiplicity seems as two opposites. Infinite power and weakness and limitation seem as two opposites. It's almost like the chicken and egg. But there is a possibility, and if the divine actually is the ultimate, if Satchit Ananda is the actual ultimate, then it is something which will be inclusive of all these opposites, yet exceeds all these opposites. It's like, it's neither the chicken or egg which came first. There was something even before the chicken and egg. So it exceeds both the opposites, yet is inclusive of both the opposites. And Sri Aurobindo expresses this through these words, that all these opposite terms are merely general conditions for the manifestation of conscious being in that transcendent who is always one, not only behind, but within all conditions, however apparently opposite. So he expresses that all these opposite terms, unity, multiplicity, infinite power, limitation, they are the general conditions for the manifestation of the conscious being in the transcendent. So the transcendent existence representing the Sat and the conscious being representing the Chit. So the Chit manifests from Sat where there are opposites. It manifests to balance the opposites. So wherever there are two polarities, that is the general condition for the manifestation of the Chit and the Chit Shakti in order to balance the two opposites. And then he says that transcendent who is always one is not only behind but within all conditions, however apparently positive. So that transcendent Sat is not just giving birth to that conscious being or that Chit, but it is also present in the Chit. It is present in the opposites, in both the unity and the multiplicity. And this is the beauty of reading Sri Aurobindo, that he doesn't allow you to settle in any of the polar views of seeing things. It's like a mental gym which takes you through various different perspectives, doesn't allow you to settle at any, and makes the mind open and flexible. Another key aspect here is that Sri Aurobindo emphasizes that even though in this chapter we talk about the mind viewing Satchit Ananda as separate Sat, separate Chit and a separate Ananda, they're actually one. Satchit Ananda is one. And only for the purpose of understanding we are making this distinction. But through this mental gym, one can experience the oneness between the Satchit Ananda. And the mind experiences things in this separation of not just space. It doesn't just divide things as Satchit Ananda. Mind also experiences time. It experiences, I was this, I am this, I will be this. I was doing this, I am doing this, I will be doing this. And the opportunity for the mind to align with the Satchidananda lies in the I am consciousness. For example, if we say to ourselves, I am conscious, I am aware. When we say these words, we are more likely to align with the eternal I am. If we are the self with a small s, then the divine is, or Satchidananda is the self with a capital S. If we are the I am here, then divine is the eternal I am. And when we say I am conscious, I am aware, then we align with this primal or original self-awareness or the eternal I am. But when we say I am unconscious, if we examine this statement, when we say to ourselves, and we very often say, I am unconscious, in reality, it is not a truth. Because when we say I am, then it may be true that we may not be aware of the surface consciousness, but we are never unconscious. We may be other conscious. We may be lost in our thoughts. We may be daydreaming. We may be lost in our subconscious. We may be sleeping. We may be meditative. So we are not unconscious, but we may be other conscious. But when we say to ourselves, I am conscious, I am aware, it's an opportunity for the mind to go deeper and align and experience some degree of reflection of that Chit, which is the eternal self-awareness. Similarly, when we say to ourselves, I am blissful, we align to the eternal truth, to the eternal Ananda, that we are blissful. But when we say to ourselves, I am miserable, there is no pleasure in me. There are those moments of sorrow or depression when it just completely takes over an individual, and one may say to oneself, I am miserable. There is no pleasure in my existence. But now if we examine this from the true reality of things, this again is not the truth. One may say to oneself that I am blissful, but at the surface, I experience an intense sorrow, which acknowledges our true reality, that we truly are the eternal, the blissful. But at the same time, it acknowledges our surface experience. And it's beautiful how Sri Aurobindo helps through a very simple statement of I am consciousness to bring the mind to its depths and have some subtle experience of the Satchit Ananda. And again, just like the mental gym, Sri Aurobindo in the previous chapters first talks about a process of rejection, or this is not myself or thyself, this is one working of the Prakriti, this physical, stand back from it. I am not this thinker or thought, this is one working of Prakriti in the mind, stand back from it. So if that was a process of going deeper through a process of rejection, in this chapter, Sri Aurobindo talks about the power of I am consciousness. And about this, Sri Aurobindo writes that in order to realize the Sachchidananda, we have to get away from our absorption in these surface habits, in these petty tricks of our mental being. And when we do get behind and away from them, it is surprising how superficial they are. What ridiculously weak and little penetrating pinpricks they prove to be. And we have to realize true existence, true consciousness, and true experience of existence and consciousness, Satchit Ananda. So he emphasizes that when we get deeper, when we start from saying I am miserable to moving to saying that I am blissful, but I experience sorrow at the surface or pain at the surface, and we go deeper and deeper into the mind, then we realize how these surface pains and inflictions are like little pinpricks. So in this I am consciousness, there is a beautiful opportunity for us by saying I am conscious, I am aware, I am the infinite power, I am blissful. Sure, at surface there is limitation, there is weakness. I am essential. I am, when we say I am essential, it moves us towards the essence. I am the best. It again aligns with the ultimate divine truth. And it doesn't just have to start with I am. There is also the Tattvam Asi, thou art that. The same infinite divine is there in others. We don't say you are divine, thou art that, which reflects the depth, and we are referring to the essence or the depth of the being. Thou art that. So by going deeper and exploring the present moment I am consciousness, there is a possibility for the mind to align to some degree to the Satchit Ananda. But again, Sri Aurobindo comes here to take us one level deeper. He remarks that this mental self-awareness is not the true Chitta. Because mind has multiple layers. It's not that we are seeing the true Chitta at the depths of the mind. Mind has the capacity to divide itself and look at itself, be aware of itself. So it does, in the depths of the mind, help reflect some of this Satchidananda, but it is not the true Satchidananda. And as we progress on the path, as we learn to consecrate ourselves fully, as we learn to surrender, then one gradually becomes aware of the true essence in us and in all beings, the true soul, which is the real Chitta, which is at work in all animate and inanimate objects. And this Chitta, which is at work in all animate and inanimate objects, can sometimes be even more intense in inanimate objects. In medical systems, we see this very clearly, that we have these metals on earth which can be so profound. They seem very inert. A heavy metal like arsenic or mercury seems very inert sitting in front of us, but it has the capacity to run havoc not just in the body but the mind also of a human system, which is supposed to be the most evolved being on earth. And yet the same arsenic and mercury, if properly processed in Ayurveda or if diluted in homeopathy, also transforms into the best source of healing. It can heal some disease which seem almost impossible to treat in their homeopathic and Ayurvedic metal form. The same metal. So the Chitta expresses at the essence level the consciousness even sometimes more intensely in some of the inanimate objects, more than even human beings. Same with plants. We have so many plants which are full of wisdom. We have tulsi, we have the banyan tree. They are so full of wisdom. We have so many teacher plants which open up the brain to newer possibilities, which are therapeutic for the mind and body and which are nourishing for the soul. So plants carry a beautiful consciousness, and so with animals. No one can smell like a dog can smell. Nobody can run like a cheetah can run. We all know about the consciousness of a cow and how sattvic quotient of a cow is so beautiful. I recently came across the equine therapy, or horses being used as a doctor for arrhythmias or heart issues, people whose heart rhythm goes off and the heart is beating very fast. Horses, the moment they come in contact with horses which have a very slow heart rate, their heart rhythm starts to align. So how the consciousness of different inanimate objects or the plants or the animals has such varied and unique lines of evolution. And here Sri Aurobindo remarks that whether it is this physical or this cellular level or this plant consciousness or this animal consciousness, they are all contained within the human beings. All these rungs of evolution are present in human beings also. It expresses, the human beings carry that urge to live which a plant has. A plant, its leaves and its flowers and its stem move towards sunlight. The roots grow towards water and minerals. So that same urge to live is manifest in human beings. That animalistic instinct or impulse is also present in the human beings, which can be destructive but can also be beautifully constructive, because it is sometimes we lose touch with it because it is the gut feel in us. And one of the common mistakes that is made is to consider that the human intellect or reason is a superior expression of the Chitta. And these are inferior expressions of the Chitta. One may say that it is a more evolved expression of the Chitta, but each of these have their own unique strengths and weaknesses. A little globule of homeopathy can do what years of medical research can't do. Our gut feel can pick up things which hours of contemplation, reflection, or analysis could not. If you ask a sports person, they will tell you that how much they value the instinct on the field. They may have all the data analysis of the previous sports. They may have all the knowledge, but on the field, they really value that instinct to make a decision. And they work on honing and developing a true relationship with that instinct to differentiate it from random thoughts, random impulses. But what is the true gut feel? So each of these, whether coming from the plant, whether coming from the animal, whether coming from the physical level, each of these are expressions of the same Chitta. They carry at their essence the same consciousness, and one is not superior over the other. They all carry their unique strengths and weaknesses, including the mental plane, where we can reason and reflect that Chitta to some degree in silence. And to this, Sri Aurobindo remarks, for man here is the result of an evolution and contains in himself the whole of that evolution up from the merely physical and subvital conscious being to the mental creature, which at the top he is. So in the man, all these rungs of evolution, subhuman, subvital, are contained within it. And it is important at this point of time, slightly digressing from the topic, to acknowledge this within all of us, because as we used to live in the olden days and we used to live in nature, there was a natural acknowledgement of these parts of us. As a human, we were interacting with plants, we were interacting with animals. So there was a constant interaction and nurturance of these animalistic instinct, impulse, this working with plants for all of us. But as we move into the urban living and the interaction is getting more and more limited to human beings or gadgets, some of this is going unacknowledged. Some of this is going unattended. Some of this is going unheard. And in process, human beings are developing even more conflicts within themselves and staying more and more at the mental sphere. And that is causing more allergies, autoimmune disease. And it's beautiful to see that as we reintegrate a human being to their natural habitat, the more they live with the earth element, with plants and animals, a lot of these can heal to a greater degree. So coming back to Chitta. So Chitta expresses at the subhuman levels, subvital levels, at the mental level. But Chitta also expresses at a superhuman level, at a supernormal level. And Sri Aurobindo describes one of these levels as the truth plane, where the knowledge becomes self-effective. The knowledge becomes spontaneous. We in our mental plane, when we try to understand something, it's a struggle. We read about it, we think about it. When we try to execute something, it's another struggle. But we observe that when we get peaceful, knowledge comes to us. Things happen spontaneously through us. A much more evolved version of the same probably lies at the truth plane, where Sri Aurobindo describes that the idea carries within it that light and force. And that light and force can be turned upon the mind, the senses, the heart, the vital, the subvital parts, and there is a spontaneous perfect action. And at the truth plane, the wills are not as separate as they are at this level. The will of all is in harmony with each other. So whatever is to manifest, that light and force is turned upon the whole. Again, we can relate to it in some way that sometimes when we are going through a conflict with someone and we sit down to meditate, by the end of the meditation or through the meditation, we find that the inner conflict or the inner aspect of the conflict is transformed through the meditation. But when we come back into the real world, we also see that the situation is also transformed and the other person also seems transformed. So that truth plane is acting on all at the same time. And beyond the truth plane, Sri Aurobindo describes Chitta in its original primal form, where all these wills, all these consciousness, of plants, animate, inanimate objects, animals, human beings, their senses, their vital, their heart, their mental reason, they all come together. The whole universe not just comes together in harmony, but they unify into one consciousness of the being, or one power of consciousness. So that's the primal or the original consciousness. And as they say about how the origins of this universe are, there was nothing, there was only nothingness initially, and first came, when the nothingness or the Sat, it became aware of itself. So the self-awareness or the primary or primal self-awareness emerged, which is the Chitta. And then it started to manifest everything through the Chitta Shakti, or the awareness force, or the consciousness force. So here Sri Aurobindo writes that it is this Chit which modifies itself so as to become, on the truth plane, the supermind, on the mental plane, the mental reason, will, emotion, sensation, on the lower planes, the vital or the physical instincts, impulses, habits of an obscure force, not in superficial conscious possession of itself. All is Chit because all is Sat. All is various movements of the original consciousness because all is various movement of the original being. So it is the Chit which manifests as the supermind on the truth plane, the mental reason, the will, the impulses, the instincts. At every level, it is the Chit. And all is Chit because all is Sat. Moving to Ananda. So there is Sat, there is nothingness, Nirguna, from where the Chit or the conscious being emerges. And this conscious being starts to manifest creation. But why? Why would Sat Chit manifest into creation? If we reflect on it, we can look at three possibilities. One possibility is because Satchit is compelled by somebody to manifest. That seems a bit counterintuitive, because if Satchit is the ultimate, who is there to compel Satchit to manifest? Another possibility is it is manifesting just like that. There's no reason. It's just happening. Again, that doesn't align with our heart. The third possibility is that there is a spontaneous joy in creation. There is a spontaneous joy in manifestation. And that seems to align with our heart. That opens up the heart. So that may be more closer to the truth. That there is Ananda in manifestation. There is Ananda in creation. And Sri Aurobindo here describes two forms of Ananda. One is this all bliss or universal bliss of becoming or manifesting as this creation, as this multiplicity. And the second Ananda, which is a realization that the essence of Chitta is Ananda. Or at the essence of Chitta is again the self or the Sat. And this is self-bliss. Sri Aurobindo describes this as self-bliss. And when we possess the essence of the Chitta, whether it is as its primal, transcendent, original consciousness, or at the essence level of any manifestation, whether within us or in this chair or in any human being, when we possess the essence, then again there is a Ananda, which is self-bliss. So there is self-bliss in unity, and there is all bliss in the multiplicity, and there is Satchit Ananda everywhere. But human beings struggle because we tend to identify with neither this inner essence or self-bliss nor with this universal all bliss. We tend to identify with this, that I am this existence, this physical existence, and this is my mental consciousness, and I seek Ananda by enjoying the objects or things outside. So it struggles with both the universe and with its own essence. And in process, it can't experience the true everlasting delight or Ananda. And to this, Sri Aurobindo writes, the human beings are right in trying to assert and fulfill themselves in the universe for the sake of something greater and beyond. So human beings, it is okay or it is right to seek one's own fulfillment as a human being, as long as it is for something greater or a cause which is beyond I or you, for the greater cause. But wrong in attempting to do so against the universal and in obedience to fragmentary aspect of the universal. So when we identify ourselves with this accidental fragmentary existence and we assert, I am to be fulfilled, my will be done, rather than thy will be done, my will be done. And when we assert for our boundaries, how can somebody impinge on my boundaries out of this separatory existence, then we invite struggle and trouble towards us. But when the same thing, when the same assertion for the same boundary, for the same fulfillment is happening for a cause greater than you and me, when it is happening in obedience with the divine will, when we say thy will be done, then it aligns us to the self-bliss and the all-bliss. And this makes the knowledge or the understanding of Satchit Ananda complete with a practical value and with an experience. It is complete because we see the Satchit Ananda, the infinite divine power, not just beyond. We don't just see the divine in its unity, we experience the divine in multiplicity. We experience the infinite power or the Chitta, not just as the truth plane or the transcendent consciousness, but also equally present in very different forms in all animate, inanimate objects, within oneself, in one's own physical, vital impulses, senses, heart, mental and supramental ways and expressions. And the knowledge becomes complete in Ananda when we experience the all bliss, or when we experience this joy of creation not just for ourselves, but just for the sake of creation, for the sake of aligning to the divine will, to having an opportunity to work for the divine. And then there is a spontaneous joy, then we align to the all bliss. When in relationships, we experience our own essence and the essence of the other person, and there is an entire self giving, then we experience the self bliss. That completes the knowledge and gives it that practical value and an experience. Thank you. Dr. Bijlani, would you like to add something? Om Tat Saviturvaram Rupam Jyotihi Parasya Dhimahi Yannaha Satyena Deepayet Yannaha Satyena Deepayet. Om Tat Saviturvaram Rupam Jyotihi Parasya Dhimahi Yannaha Satyena Deepayet Yannaha Satyena Deepayet. Om Tat Saviturvaram Rupam Jyotihi Parasya Dhimahi Yannaha Satyena Deepayet Yannaha Satyena Deepayet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.